It's vital to remember when discussing anime that it is always made by people, not brands. But at the same time, you do often see patterns in the output of certain anime studios resulting from how they're managed that become harder and harder to ignore the more frequently they repeat themselves. Case in point, Cloverworks, I've noticed, is very good at starting anime. However, their dismounts could do with some improvement. Wonder Egg Priority was probably Winter 2021's biggest surprise success, and I think deservedly so. Its premise is immediately fascinating and rife with possibilities. 14 girls whose lives have been touched by suicide dive into an arcade dream world where they must use fantastical superpowers based on their interests/coping mechanisms to protect other teen suicide victims from their inner demons. And if they can save enough of them, their lost friends will be returned to life. But along the way to that goal, a funny thing happens, and they begin to find comfort and paths forward in life through each other. Basically, it's K-On! Meets Persona with extra drippy magical girls. And on that note, this video is brought to you by Atsuko, where you can now use the promo code MOTHERSBASEMENT, all one word, to get 10% off any and all of their anime fashion items, including the new summer line of graphic tees, comfy cool sweats and shorts, soccer jerseys, and retro-style button-downs that, I mean, just look at that Dragon Ball print, those Bebop panels, the Yu Yu Hakusho graphics, Naruto x Hello Kitty? Yes, please. Wear your otaku heart on your otaku sleeve and look good doing it at Atsuko.com/basement. And remember that code MOTHERSBASEMENT for 10% off everything. Like Vivi's focus on turning points in 100 years of history, or plastic memories and its family-destroying weekly recall jobs, Wonder Egg's psychological premise and plot structure make a great foundation for both emotionally explosive, self-contained episodic storylines and strong season-long character growth. It's basically optimal TV writing, barring any pacing issues with the overarching plot or underlying exposition, he said, foreshadowingly. And that strong story is one of the less impressive aspects of this production. Director Shin Wakabayashi, art director Yuki Funao, character designer and animation director Saki Takahashi, compositing director Takeo Ogiwara, and color designer Kazuko Nakashima pulled off a truly impressive artistic feat in replicating the distinctive style of directing goddess Naoko Yamada and twisting the comfy, everyday atmosphere she so effortlessly elicits in service of surreal psychological horror. Instead of a fluffy music club dream world, Wonder Egg Priority drops us into a vivid adolescent nightmare where heavily stylized, Persona-esque metaphorical monstrosities encroach on the crumbling facade of anime high school reality, and frequent, vaguely framed cutaways to the waking world make us increasingly unsure of what reality even is, or isn't. If you're well-versed in anime storytelling, the way this series plays with style and editing conventions to create and subvert expectations is kinda mind-expanding. And even for those who wouldn't know KyoAni from Konami, the show's character acting and character action alike rarely fail to impress with their fluid, weighty, almost rotoscoped-feeling animations, which play in perfect time to a beautiful soundscape arranged by Akiko Fujita using an eclectic selection of music from Mito and Dede Mouse and sound effects from Yuji Furuya. It's a real premium-feelin', cinematically influenced prestige TV type anime, demanding and rewarding your attention with practically every frame. And despite a hellish and haphazardly planned production cycle that saw animators working literally up to the last hour before broadcast and producers pretending an unscheduled slapped-together recap was totally what they had planned for episode 8 from the beginning, the genius team of artists I just listed to Kaguya managed to keep that quality up consistently throughout almost its entire run. Some episodes are basically held together with tape and gum, but that doesn't really affect the viewing experience that much, and unless you know what to look for, it's hard to tell at a glance. And that's even true of the series finale, which aired as a special this June, 3 months after the series ended, on account of the aforementioned recap episode shuffle. It's clearly way more constrained in what it can show us than any of the previous episodes, but because the editing stays sharp and the show hasn't already overused all those conventional limited animation shortcuts, it works in a last levels of MGS5 sort of way. But even so, that special is one of the most disappointing things I, and judging from the internet's reaction, a lot of other anime fans have ever seen. Much of the fault for that does lie in how it was marketed. In order to save face for that delay, those anime producers I mentioned hyped up the last episode as this big, hour-long special event, only to be proven liars once again when it actually aired, and 25 of its 45 minutes of runtime turned out to be a clip show of the story so far, making Wonder Egg Priority a 13-episode anime with 2 recap episodes. And making matters even worse, the remainder of the finale isn't actually a finale at all, but rather one big to-be-continued cliffhanger that does more to set the characters back in their growth and deny them closure than it does to tie off any important loose ends, which probably would have been a lot less contentious had it been able to simply release as a regular-length season finale. While it's not super satisfying as a conclusion as sequel teases go, even ones that will probably almost certainly never be fulfilled, the emotional stakes it establishes for the characters moving forward are at least consistent with the arcs it's prolonging, and it teases some high-concept big ideas that are interesting at the very least. But after 3 months of marketing build-up and with an intentionally deceptive, bloated runtime, it just feels like a slap in the face. Worse still, the way that final story is written ends up calling a lot of attention back to how the series kinda started to lose its way around episode 9, specifically by suddenly pushing those interesting, high-concept big ideas to the forefront of the story, sidelining the emotional coming-of-age narrative that made the first half of the series so compelling to begin with, and most frustratingly of all, tying its touchy themes of teen suicide to the interesting high-concept big ideas with a tangled nest of narrative knots that ends up both oversimplifying and overcomplicating the show's exploration of that touchy topic. On the one hand, the series does shine a spotlight on oft-ignored serious social issues that contribute to that central serious social issue, like bullying, sexual assault and abuse, grooming, and even misgendering. And it explores the trauma of those phenomena with definitely not subtlety. That kendo rapist monster sure does have a leaky dick nose, but at least a degree of respect and consideration for how these real problems affect real people. A lot of snide words have been said about Wonder Egg's on-the-nose symbolism, and yeah, you don't exactly need an Ava-sized brain to make sense of the see-no-evils and haters, but accusations that Wonder Egg is just sensationalized style over substance ignore all the care that the animators, writer, and actors have clearly put into capturing as authentically as they can the complex inner worlds of troubled teen girls. A ton of raw, honest emotion comes through in Wonder Egg's animation, especially during the action climaxes of earlier episodes, and that wouldn't be there at all if the show's handling of these topics was purely exploitative. On the other hand, though, one of the, interesting high-concept big ideas that I mentioned is that the real reason suicide rates are so high among 14-year-old girls in Tokyo is that These two scientist guys working for Not Mensa built an autonomous, perfect AI daughter named Frill in their spare time, and then buried her in their basement after she murdered the handsome one's pregnant wife in a fit of jealousy. So she plugged herself into some cables, and now her ghost, assisted by some other ghost robots with butterflies and flowers for heads that she built, has become the embodiment of Thanatos, or the death drive, for specifically 14-year-old girls. Because girls have less control over their emotions, you see, and are thus more prone to impulsive suicides than boys. Which is a total shit garbage idea with no basis in actual psychology that actively counteracts everything positive about how the show handles its sensitive subject matter. Though I don't think that diminishes the power that the show's better handled moments have in the moment. Wonder Egg's best scenes, which blend music, action choreography, and rarely represented real shit together into emotional roller coasters made of Sakuga, can be profoundly cathartic. They capture aspects of human experience that few other anime have even tried to capture in a stunningly beautiful fashion. If you've survived bullying or especially marginalization, there are parts of this show that will speak to you like nothing else out there. It's just a massive shame that not only can't it keep it up, but it actively trips over itself as it goes on. Egregious mishandling of the show's core theme aside, I can see an argument being made that Frill is some kind of metaphor for, I don't know, how the hypersexualized and idealized teenage girls constructed by adult men for anime and video games can have a negative influence on the psychological development of actual teenage girls, or something to that effect. But even then, we run into the same fundamental problem that Giant Zero 2 had. The base concept is stupid on the face of it and comes out of left field like a bad joke, making it impossible to take any of this sci-fi nonsense seriously enough for the metaphor to matter. And for an unfortunate 4-episode stretch right at the end, sci-fi nonsense becomes more or less entirely what the show is about. It turns on a dime from relatable, if sensational, teenage trauma to the family drama of a genetically engineered, super genius tween CEO who lost her even geniusier anime albino best friend to an experimental attempt to reach parallel realities through a near-death experience. And while that concept actually pays off in a powerfully chilling fashion when Oto Ai comes face to face with an alternate version of herself who never made friends and actually did go through with it, it just feels completely out of step with everything the show's been so far. As does the sudden shift in 2 out of 4 protagonists' motivations from coping with the tragic loss of their human friends and discovering themselves to, respectively, being traumatized by and seeking revenge for the murder of their personal Pokémon by bug-headed robot girls. And don't even get me started on the twist that Nehru, the eugenics-built super genius teen CEO I just mentioned, who was already bordering on unrelatable even within the show's heightened reality of adolescent angst, is actually an AI clone of the real eugenics-built super genius teen CEO, created by her albino super genius best friend as a side project to her interdimensional death research, which is the real reason that Nehru's older sister stabbed her and killed herself. Also, at the last minute, Nehru ends up leaving all of her friends to follow Frill into the AI ghost world, causing their group to drift apart, like all of a sudden in episode 12, it's Hideaki Anno's Anohana. Wonder Egg Priority doesn't jump the shark, per se. I'd argue that it can't, really, as its base premise of magic eggs that let you battle the personal trauma of teen suicide victims inside your own dream world is about as far out there as anime concepts get. But it still simulates the shark-jumping experience by dropping all of these differently out there ideas on us without enough time to really process or accept them as part of its universe, or to get attached to any of the new characters who are suddenly stealing spotlight from the main cast. Now, that may have been intentional to some extent. Wonder Egg's not exactly subtle about working to create a dreamlike atmosphere, and the underlying concepts of dreams don't always click together neatly when you look at them logically. In a dream, you can just be battling some horny demons one minute, and then the next AI exists and always has, and is so easy to create that two different people can build one in their spare time, and you kinda just gotta roll with it. But if that's what they were going for, then they really shouldn't have spent so much time explaining and expositing about that stuff. The focus really ought to have stayed on the characters, with the world building left fuzzy in the background. But then, that is easy enough for me to say in retrospect, looking at the series as a finished whole. It's not quite as easy to sort out a story's priorities when it's the first show you've ever written, and you're still writing it as it's being broadcast, because the director's also doing this for the first time, and the studio's not really helping you. I really feel for Shinji Nojima on this. It was genuinely cool of A1 Pictures management to give a team of passionate but inexperienced creatives the opportunity to build their own IP from scratch like this, but it takes more than vision and talent to make a TV anime. The production process and broadcast schedule define and limit what's possible as much as the abilities of the individual artists involved, and the skills to effectively manage and create around those limitations only really come with experience. New creators can bring bold new ideas to old, stagnant art forms, but they also have a tendency to bite off more than they can chew with their ambitions. Nobody really knows how hard it'll be to cram coming-of-age dramedies, psychological horror, magical girls, evil AI, parallel realities, and serious explorations of real issues faced by real teenage girls into 12, 20-minute episodes until they've tried to do it, you know? You might not know, but anyone who's been in the TV business long enough to run a studio or sit on a production committee damn well should. The almost superhuman animation efforts and outsourcing desperation plays that allowed Wonder Egg's production values to consistently hide its struggles from viewers should not have blinded its producers to the crunch happening around them. They should have done something to give the team more time and resources, or at least manage fan expectations. Instead, not only did they wait until things reached an obvious breaking point in episode 7 to delay production, but they pretended publicly that that delaying tactic was all part of the plan. Maybe out of embarrassment over episode 5.5 of The Promised Neverland 2 happening a couple weeks prior. Then they lied again about the nature of the true finale, putting their team under maximum pressure with minimal time and resources to finish it. Purportedly, it only started production the same month it aired, all the while setting their audience up for maximum disappointment. And you know, when you consider all that, it's kind of a miracle that Wonder Egg Priority turned out as great as it did. That at least half of its episodes are unambiguously phenomenal, that it still conveys its ideas effectively even as they get bad and weird and convoluted, and that its non-ending is just a tepid and unsatisfying bloated cliffhanger as opposed to an actively rage-inducing sequel-slaughtering slideshow. There were no maps pointing where this show wanted to go, and yet it got a hell of a lot closer than a sister series based on established source material. Which tells me that with proper support and this experience under their belts, this team's next work will really be one to watch out for. And even in its incomplete state, I'm sure that this show will inspire the aesthetics and direction of a lot of new anime moving forward. The way that it plays with stylistic conventions is nothing short of genius. Wonder Egg Priority was a dumpster fire, to be sure, but one that blazed with brilliant warmth and beauty for a good long while and only smelled moderately rancid for a little while right at the end there. And while obviously I do wish I lived in the parallel reality where it had the support and production time to reach its full potential, I still had a far better time watching this show self-immolate on the pyre of its own ambitions than I have watching 100 more consistent and conventional anime play it safe. Though also not nearly as good a time as I had watching the equally ambitious Vivy and Odd Taxi stick their landings. Seriously, watch Vivy and Odd Taxi. But also, watch Wonder Egg Priority if you haven't already, at least up to episode 7, because it is truly unlike any other anime or show you've ever seen, and its wildly creative, absurdly ambitious routine will stick with you long after you've forgotten its clumsy dismount. I'm Jeff Thu, professional shitbag, signing out from my mother's basement. Which, remember, is also a promo code, all one word, for 10% off your entire anime look at Atsuko.com/basement.